Tens of thousands of Thai protesters in Bangkok spill their blood on the streets in a bid to pressurize the government into calling elections. After 4 days of continuing protests, can the Thai opposition force the Prime Minister to resign? Is the current government accused of being illegitimate, capable of clinging on to power? This is Inside Story. Hello there, I'm Nick Clark. They're calling it a blood sacrifice. Protesters in Thailand have poured litres of their own blood on the ground outside a government building in Bangkok. It's all part of anti-government protests calling for new elections. And the leader of the main opposition, the UDD, claims the Prime Minister once said he could not walk on the blood of his people to get to work, hence this symbolic gesture. Well, earlier this week, thousands of supporters lined up to donate their blood for the demonstration. At the weekend, around 100,000 red shirt protesters marched in the Thai capital, demanding the dissolution of Parliament. The Prime Minister, Habiset Wechachiva, has rejected the call, and security has been stepped up in the city. Well, Thailand is divided into two political camps, conveniently for us, each with a preferred colour. There are the red shirt protesters from the United Front of Democracy Against Dictatorship, and they're against the current government because they say it was not democratically elected. And most, but not all, are pro-former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. Opposing the red shirts are the yellow shirt protesters, and they support the current government and are anti-Thaksin. In fact, it was their street protest back in 2006 that set the stage for the military coup that ultimately overthrew Thaksin's government. Well, joining us today to talk more about all of this from Bangkok, we have the spokesman for the United Front for Democracy Against Dictatorship, that's Sean Boon Prakong, representing the red shirts. In Jakarta, we have Tim Forsyth, Thailand and Southeast Asia specialist at the London School of Economics. And also in Bangkok, Supong Limtanakul, Vice President for Special Affairs at the Centre for Strategic Studies in Bangkok University. And Dr. Supong, I'd like to start with you, if I may. You're not a supporter of the red shirts, but lay out your perspective on this. Where do you see this going?
I think this is part of growing up. This is part of democracy. They have their rights to come to air their grievances. I don't see anything wrong with that as long as there's no violence. I think both sides, both the government, both the red shirt, both the yellow shirts have learned their lesson in 2008 that it does not do Thailand any good if we resort to violence.
And are you confident that we won't see any violence?
Hopefully not. So far, so good. I mean, you know, as you can see, the air of normalcy is around us, except on the street where they're having a rally, which naturally they have to excite the group, the crowd a bit to keep them from being sleepy, I guess. Okay,
let's move on to Tim Forsyth. How do you see this panning out? How vulnerable do you believe the government is at this point in time?
Well, as an outsider, of course, we have to take the views from the Thai people themselves. But in my opinion, I think the government at the moment is not very vulnerable. I think what we're seeing is probably a response to the decision of the courts last month to freeze $1.4 billion of Thaksin's assets. And he's now bringing out the crowds during a particular time of the year when there's not much going on in the agriculture, when they have the time to come to Bangkok and remind everybody that they're still here. But essentially, as things stand at the moment, I think this is not going to lead towards a major clash.
So where do you think it's going to go? What's the point of it? Are the red shirts actually achieving anything by doing what they're doing?
Yes, I think they are achieving things. I think what they're achieving is to remind the people of Thailand and the government of Thailand that Thaksin and the red shirts and those people who are politically aligned with them are still there. Of course, the bigger question going on is what's going to happen in the next couple of years, because there's a lot of uncertainty about what's happening in Thailand. In terms of the parliament, we have a very difficult situation where the popular vote, the number of people who voted for members of parliament are essentially not represented in the government, the actual ruling parties. And that's because of all the various shenanigans and the agreements and disagreements which have happened over the last few years. Now, at the moment, that is a source of discontent. Now, maybe in time, when we have a general election, that situation will be sorted out. but at the moment it's still uncertain. The other uncertainty, of course, is a very delicate and difficult situation, which is the health of the king. The king, of course, is very revered in Thailand, but people are very worried because he's 82 now. He's suffered from pneumonia. Now, if something were to happen to the king, then I think that might make the situation very unstable. So I think what Thaksin and the red shirts are doing at the moment is simply just reminding people that they're still there and that there's still a lot of political force if necessary.
So, Sean Boonparakong, is this just a gentle reminder to the rest of Thailand and to the government particularly that they're just still there, or do they want to be to present something more meaningful than that?
I think that from our standpoint, the theme of injustice always play well. I think that if there's an election today, we would win. For the past year and a half, we have tried every possible which way to demand a fair share of what we feel that belongs to sovereignty of the people. And we knew that opposite government was created in the barracks, and the series of conciliation move that he said he would initiate, none of them has materialized. This is why our number keep growing and growing, and because of the peaceful method that we trying to abide to, and we have been successful for the past 6 or 7. I like to say that I agree with Dr. Supong that from our standpoint, we will do anything. We will not do anything in a dangerous way or violent way to change the political equation.
Tim Forsyth, how much of a politically motivated demonstration is this? Or you know, there's a lot of talk about a lot of demonstrations being bussed in, being paid up demonstrators, if you like. Which way do you feel this goes?
I do honestly think there's a lot of worry in the Thai north and northeast amongst common farmers that the government they have is not representative. Also, I think that there's a lot of farmers in the north who are very worried that Thaksin has gone because they like Thaksin. They feel that he's a much better form of governance than some of the others in recent years. However, having said that, there is a long, long history of people coming to Bangkok because they're paid to do so, or because it's a form of popular politics, which people just enjoy. Like I say, I mean, you know, at this time of the year in March, the rains haven't come yet. The real agricultural season will start in a couple of months' time properly. I think this is a good time when people can come and spend a bit of time bonding, talking about politics which they are worried about. But at the same time, I think it is reasonable to say that a fair amount will have been bussed in for the ride.
OK, and Dr. Supong, a lot of people like Thaksin, as Tim Forsyth says, and as your colleague there, your red-shirted colleague there in Bangkok says, if there was an election today, the red shirts would win. What do you think?
I think they will not win the majority. I think it will still be a coalition government. And as I said from the beginning, that politics in Thailand is very, very unique in such a way that the politician can change side like a flip of a coin. In the morning, they can be something, and then in the afternoon, they can be another thing, as we can see people switching side very readily, much quicker than they can change their shirts. So a political agenda is probably something that they can go under the banner of, but actually, most of the people right now, I think they are deep down, they are worried about the severe drought situation, much more so than who is going to be the next prime minister or who is going to be the next ruling party. Actually, this is what I really believe, and from our research, that is the answer that we got so far.
OK, so as the rest of Thailand watches proceedings in Bangkok, what's going through their minds? What are they thinking? Are they really taking an interest, or are they, as you say, just more concerned about getting food in their bellies, just looking to the skies to see if it's going to rain?
Yes, I think that right now what we are seeing is part of the unraveling democratic process that Thailand is still learning. Please don't forget that our democracy just started about 60 or 70 years ago, which we still have a lot more to learn. And I think, and I hope that the demonstration will not turn into anything violence, which will do Thailand, which will not do Thailand any good at all.
Well, let's take a look at the political picture in Thailand. In May 2007, Thaksin's party, TRT, was banned. When civilian rule was restored in January 2008, Samak Sundaravej, an ally of Thaksin, was elected Prime Minister. But within 9 months, anti-government protesters called for the PM to resign. He was eventually discharged for hosting television cooking shows while in office. Somchai Wongsawat, again a Thaksin ally, was the next man in office. However, the protests continued. Within 3 months, he was dismissed after being accused of electoral fraud. At this point, many Thaksin loyals switched sides. This paved the path for Thaksin's rival, Abhisit Wachichiva, who took office without calling elections. Unhappy with the government and its policies, Thaksin supporters took to the streets in March 2009. Since then, there have been several clashes between the pro and anti-government groups, like we mentioned before, the yellow and the red shirts. Okay, Tim Forsyth, what do you say to this idea that, you know, it is a relatively new democracy and that there is still a lot to learn? Is that what we're witnessing here, really?
I think that's a very useful starting point for describing what's going on. I think in many ways the democracy itself is much younger than the 60 or 70 years since the establishment of Thailand itself. I think democratic elections really started around about 1988. And basically what we're seeing is immense changes in a rapidly developing country where the government used to be ruled by royals and the army in alliance with each other, and now increasingly challenged by the likes of Thaksin, who are from relatively low backgrounds, but who have made incredibly large amounts of money and carry a great deal of power in today's global economy. And I think what's also going on is a resentment amongst many of the people who are now on the streets of Thailand against the old regime, the sort of the elites of Bangkok, who are always seen to be unaware or not particularly caring about the rest of the country. So I think what's going on now is a little bit of that sort of resentment going on. But unfortunately, the party political system in Bangkok hasn't yet resulted in a stable form of political debate where you can lead towards stable government.
Dr. Supong, isn't the heart of the matter that the PM just does not have enough support, that Thaksin really does provide a very viable and popular alternative to the people?
I think Mr. Thaksin is the end result of this learning process. Actually, what I see right now, because politicians in Thailand are so divided and they do not congregate because of the same ideology, just like many countries like America, you are a Democrat or a Republican. But here in Thailand, you can switch party as easily as you can change your coat or your dress. So in this effect, if you come because of convenience and not because of ideology, you don't have to answer to the questions of the people in your constituents. Why do you change side? So that is I think we have a lot to learn, and the Thai people have a lot to learn also.
So, and Tim Forsyth, how is this process going to be used? How do we oil the wheels of education, if you like, in the political process?
I think it's going to be a slow process. In some ways, I think the other speakers with me tonight are very correct in saying that making your presence known in a non-violent way is a good way of doing this. It's basically letting people be seen and be heard, but without leading towards negative effects. What we will need in time is a good and transparent general election, but there is a shadow overhanging the general election, which is Thaksin, who is somebody who, according to Thai law, has been convicted of corruption, and if he were to turn up in Thailand at the moment, would be put in jail for 2 years. He is still having an influence over Thai politics. And this is a very unusual situation. Not many countries can claim to have this additional factor in their political makeup.
Yeah, well, Sean Buparakong, I was going to bring that up next, as it happens anyway. There you go. Thaksin, your leader, he's a crook. He's not legitimate. He's been charged with corruption, of all things.
Well, if you have to look at the merit of the particular case, when he has a prefix of fugitive ex-prime minister, his wife bought a bidded land, and as a husband, he has to co-sign the deed. But yet the court ruled that his wife went free, and then he was convicted. The very nature of this is an example of the theme of injustice most of the red are feeling, and therefore really hasn't been addressed. And of course, if you live as a Thai, as a poor person who has a motorcycle, who run into a roadblock and got taking money from the cops, and this is the theme of what the Reds are feeling. But not only that, there has been an increasing level of political consciousness. You know, in Thailand there are 165 universities. Most of the rural people have now college degree, and in contrary to the perception of Bangkok people who paint these people to be rather poor and stupid, which is on the opposite is quite true. And I think that from a lot of our Red followers are interested in true democracy. They feel like they want a piece of the pie, and the main power that be, the aristocrat, the Ahmad as we call it, has not come to redress this inequality. And of course this theme is playing well. That's why we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
You have to ask the question though, don't you, that were he to come back and were he to assume power, he may be a good rallying call right now, but were he to assume power, how much would the people trust him given, you know, his background in court?
I think that the question is completely misleading that we are pro-Thaksin. Let me tell you exactly what UDDs actually are. There are 60% pro-Thaksin. There are 40% a lot of people who feel like they want true democracy to take place. They've been struggling for it since 1970. And right now, there are increased political awareness among all people in the north and the northeast. They are using Thaksin as a Mr. Thaksin just to get what they want, and I think that he is our ally, and for the moment he has helped us, and I think he's being fair. But remember that the people feel a certain affection for him, as he feel like if he get no justice, no one will. As far as whether he could come back into politics, that's really unknown, unless that larger theme of inequality, justice, and due process of law are being addressed, when the people that seize the Suvarnabhumi airport and overrun the government, who are the allies of this government, the foreign minister.
I want to bring Tim Forsyth in. I can see that he's keen to jump in there. Tim.
Well, as an outsider, all I can say is that it sounds a little bit exaggerated to say that Thaksin is a victim of a miscarriage of justice, or that justice hasn't been applied to Thaksin. And I don't think the issues concerning Thaksin are simply the specific case concerning the purchase of land by his wife. 1 month ago, the government of Thailand, the court, decided that Thaksin had used his position as Prime Minister to advance his own wealth. His wealth had increased many times when he was Prime Minister, largely because he had channeled a lot of government investment projects, such as a new airport, for example, through companies which were largely controlled by him. I don't think it's quite fair of the representative of the United Front for Democracy to portray Thaksin in quite this light. I think it's quite an unusual character in that respect, and I think it is something that needs to be looked at very carefully, the extent to which the very genuine and necessary voice of the farmers in Thailand should necessarily be funded or linked to Thaksin himself, whom I think there are very genuine questions about governance.
Okay, now most of the red shirt protesters were adamant that they will reach their goal without resorting to any kind of violence. Let's hear from a few of them now.
If we stay for 1 day, he still not react, we will stay for 7 days. If stay for 7 days, he still not react, we will stay for 1 month, non-violently. So we will say, if you 1 month you still have nothing to answer, we will stay 1 year.
I donate because I dislike this government. I don't want this government.
Peaceful protest means using our own blood, not the blood of others. It's better to struggle through peaceful means than resort to violence.
Dr. Supong, isn't there a danger that the longer this goes on, that these small, albeit small component parts of the campaign, of the various opposition parties, the red shirts and the yellow shirts, may just turn violent? Isn't that a concern?
I think there's a very, very serious concern about that, because as long as the situation proceed on and prolong, it will be a class war, like they said, the rural poor against the urban rich, which actually it has nothing to do at this particular moment. Injustice in every society, even in Thailand, in America, everywhere is there. But how do we address it? One man, one vote. The pillars of democracy, I believe, is one man, one vote. And secondly is transparency, from corruption. And third, which which is the most important thing is check and balances, which during Kun Thaksin's era, some of the major mechanisms are missing. And that is the root cause of the problem. And we have to address it accordingly. And the three things that we need is education, education, and education. Because the first thing that we need to educate the people is to first ask the question, how can you become so rich in such a short period of time? I'm not mentioning about Kun Thaksin alone. I'm talking about almost every MPs that were dirt poor before they became an MP, and then now they are so immensely rich. People did not ask a single question, where did you get this enormous wealth? I mean, this is the thing that Thailand needs to address.
Yeah, Tim Forsyth, corruption a very big issue, isn't it?
Indeed it is. It's partly to do with also just an ethical concern about what is appropriate behaviour for members of parliament. The individuals themselves may not be taking money in an obviously corrupt way, but they might be involved in companies which get primary access to government contracts. I think there's a long-term problem of corruption, not just in Thailand, but in many countries. And I think that that's one of the concerns which are affecting the people dressed in red today, that they want to see a fairer government for the poorer people in Thailand. I just think it's ironic that they should be linked with this man who I think many, many people agree is a good example of corruption.
Absolutely. And Sean Boon Prakong, ultimately, really, isn't this a case of one man holding a nation hostage? Isn't that a good way of putting it?
I think I beg to disagree with this conclusion. I think that, for example, the campaign to selectively demonize Thaksin has gone on, I think, exclusively. Corruption still go on with the current government, probably more so, but that hasn't been addressed. But as far as Mr. Thaksin, his situation is that we intend to use transparency, as Dr. Supong, for the future. We realize that as better education on democracy is taking place, Thailand would benefit, and we are doing that. Since April, we've had 430 democracy schools to educate more of our Reds on political consciousness. Hence the discipline, the awareness, transparency. I think that this government truly has not provided a type of consistent plan for the nation that we all could live with, we all could agree. Therefore, I feel like for the long term, I think that I'm not really that optimistic as everybody else. I think Thais are primarily a pragmatic people compared to the rest of the world. I think our intense political crisis for the past 4 years, there really hasn't been a serious loss of death or compared to other countries. Therefore, I feel like it's a growing process, but there has to be some yielding by the power that be that appears to be controlling the system of justice. And I think that every single case that has gone against us, and this is a reason why I think that we are demonstrating and we feel like we're getting strength as time goes along. And of course, for the long-term solution, I hope that we all can be happy with just a little bit of trust in democratic system.
Well, certainly interesting times as Thailand tries to find a solution. Gentlemen, thanks very much indeed for your contribution to this programme. Sean Boon Prakong, Dr. Supong and Tim Forsyth, thanks very much indeed. And thanks for watching this edition of Inside Story. Inside Story at aljazeera.net is the email address if you'd like to drop us a line. Always keen, of course, to hear from you. From me, Nick Clark, goodbye for now.